People are feeling compassion for suffering humanity throughout the world. Philanthropists and altruists do not realize that it is impossible to improve people's material condition. Material conditions are already established by the superior administration according to one's karma. They cannot be changed. The one benefit we can render to suffering being is to try to raise them to spiritual consciousness. Material comfort cannot be increased or decreased. It is therefore said in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.18, Tal labdyat dukvad antya sukham. As far as material happiness is concerned, that comes without effort, just as tribulation comes without efforts. Material happiness and pain can be attained without endeavor. One should not bother for material activity. If one is at all sympathetic or able to do good to others, he should endeavor to raise people to Krishna consciousness. In this way, everyone, everyone uh, advances spiritually by the grace of Lord. For once, for our instruction, Bharat Maharaj acted in such a way we should be very careful not to be misled by so-called welfare activity conducted in the bodily terms. One should not give up his interest in attaining the favor of Lord Vishnu at any cost. Generally, people do not know this or they forget it. Consequently, they sacrifice their original interest, the attainment of Vishnu's favor, and engage in the philanthropic activity for bodily comfort. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Om Jnanatamiddhasya Jnananjana Chakshram Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Kashyapstaya Bhutale Shamatama Krishna Goswami Dinami. Namo Vishnu Padaya Kashyapstaya Bhutale Shantati Vedanta Swami Dinami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Chani Shesha Shunivadi Kasya Desatani. So again, I'd like to welcome to this morning Bhagavatam class. So that we are discussing the pastimes of Bharat Maharaj from the fifth canto. We are on chapter 8 in today's verse 8. Just a bit of a recap to put everything in the right context. So we see here the pastime of Bharat Maharaj. He is the son of Lord Rishabdev. Rishabdev we saw in the previous chapters, chapter 6, 7, and that he had 100 sons, and he is the son of Maharaj Nabi and Meru Devi. So he begot 100 sons. The eldest was Bharat Maharaj. And when Rishabdev retired from material life, he installed Bharat Maharaj to be the emperor of the whole universe. So we see in the previous verses that Bharat Maharaj was very kind and very efficient monarch, emperor of the whole world. And he enjoys this opulence for 10 million years, just imagine. Then when he gave all this, his paraphernalia, his kingdom, his army, his family, everything, and retired to Palahar Ashram to do devotional service as enjoined in the Vedic scripture towards the to take sannyas and attain the Supreme Lord. And he was very well engaged in the service of devotional service, so much so that he attained the bhava stage. He had all the symptoms of the advanced stage of devotional service of pure devotee. The bhava stage is one stage before the prema stage. So we know from nectar of devotion, from Shraddha to Prem, there are 9 stages, and one before the final go, the prema, is the bhava stage. And Maharaj Bharat was at that stage, very advanced, just one more step to attain the full prema bhakti. So what, as you know from the previous verses, he was meditating in the bank of the Gandaki river, and then he saw one foal, a deer, was frightened by the roar of the tiger or lion, and she jumped in the river, and at the same time, because she was pregnant, she gave birth to a baby deer, and the baby deer was floating in the water, and Bharat Maharaj was meditating there. So when he saw this scene, he jumped and rescued the deer. And eventually started looking after the deer. It's in a very intimate way. So much so that he started neglecting his own devotional service. Excuse me. Yes. And then he started rationalizing how he felt that he was the father and mother of the deer, and he felt that the deer had full faith in him. So much so that he started neglecting his own devotional service to look after the deer. So in this way, we can see that Bharat Maharaj is thinking from the previous verse. The previous he said that he's thinking, oh, this deer, I am the father and mother of the deer. Deer has full faith in me. He has taken full shelter of me. How can I neglect it? That would be a great fault of mine. Even if I neglect my duty, it is because the deer has taken shelter of me. I should I should look after it. I should protect it. He said here in Vince, even in the renounce order, he's now rationalizing his action, what he's doing. He said even in the renounce order, person should be very fully compassionate to all living. So how can I neglect this duty? Is ordained by the Lord, and even at the expense of his personal interests. So in this verse, we can see, and also from previous verse, that Bharat Maharaj is already, although very advanced, he slowly but subtly became very, very attached to the deer, to the expense of his own self-interest, which is to attain the Prema Bhakti stage. And to the stage, and now he started rationalizing. He's giving some reason why he should do this. So in this verse, we can see he's saying that even in the sannyas stage, which is the final stage, and he should be looking after the deer because that's his duty. The deer has become so dependent on him that he cannot neglect it, even the expense of all self-interest. So much going on his mind, even in this final stage. We know from the previous verses that Bharat Maharaj was the emperor of the whole world. He has so much opulence, and he gave everything up: his family, his opulence, his army, his kingdom, his servants, all the opulence that comes with being an emperor. He just gave it up, and he went to Gandaki River to do meditation, to devotional service to the end of his life to attain Prema Bhakti. But now we can see slowly, but very subtly, he is giving this up because he's become attached to the deer. So what we can see is this intense, very, very intense attachment, slowly, and this also happens if we are in our life too, if we're doing our devotional service. Sometimes we can rationalize, my job is more important, or my family is more important. We lose balance and we tend to go too much towards one side at the expense of our devotional service. This thing happens very, very subtly, and sometimes it happens in the mind. Then it becomes one meditates on it, then slowly take action, and the whole process slackens. And then we start rationalizing, oh, my health is not good, my family is more important, I have to do my job, I have to earn so much money to be comfortable in my old age. So once we start rationalizing this, then we slowly, the devotee gives services, devotional service, and goes towards the position of living everything altogether. So it happens very subtly, and sometime in a long time, because it's very subtle in the mind. So we just saw in the Prabhupada Lilamrita now that Purushottam Prabhu, who was serving Srila Prabhupada so nicely, and he thought in London he could do more things, and he already had this thing working in his mind. It was subtle, but he was thinking like this. But at the same time, he had this thought that how can he leave Srila Prabhupada, who needs him very much, and then he And then he can see he's neglecting his service to his spiritual master. He's not going down. He has all these thoughts in his mind. He's trying to rationalize it. And when he goes to Srila Prabhupada, he doesn't go down. And then he's saying, okay, I want to leave. And he said, I have some doubts. And Prabhupada said, what are your doubts? He said, clear it. Then he said, whether what you are saying is correct, or this about moon landing, and so many issue doubts he had, which he had not cleared. But he already rationalized, he wanted to leave. So in a similar way, see, Bharat Maharaj had come to a stage, he has already intense attachment, he just want to look after the deer at all expenses, because he thought he is completely in charge of the welfare of the deer. But we can see from Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is the actual doer. We are not the doers. We can bring up to certain stage, but the final doer is Krishna. But in this case, we can see Bharat Maharaj is acting like the doer, like the deer is completely dependent on him, and he has to look after it. Otherwise, the deer will be animal might kill the deer, and he'll be responsible. He can take up to some extent, but he's now readily in his mind rationalizing, just like Purushottam Prabhu was rationalizing. So this is a very crucial stage in bhakti. When you come to this stage, and we don't have any support or somebody to clear our doubt, a person can really go down. So one of the issues with Prahlad Maharaj, he was doing meditation on his own. He had no devotee association, so he could not clear his doubts. So one of the things, lesson we learned from this episode of Prahlad Maharaj is that one who does devotional service in isolation, that person puts herself or himself in a very precarious position, because there is no support, there's no one giving any indication what somebody is doing is right or wrong. And because the devotee association is like a wall that protects our bhakti lata. So in this case, we see Prahlad Maharaj doesn't have any devotee association, and is also trying to rationalize this. He said, I am the doer. I have given shelter to this deer. The deer is completely dependent on me. And if I don't do, the deer will be in a very difficult, dangerous position. So he gave up his devotional service, and then he went to the association of the deer. It's a very serious position, but through this episode, in the Bhagavatam, we are learning how the association is very subtle, it takes place, and then how slowly, gradually, the devotional service is given up, and then the result is not very favorable for devotional service. So how should we look at this? At one time, Prahlad Maharaj can be said to be very compassionate. He's looking after deer, which is the quality of a Vaishnava. Paradukha-dukhi, the Vaishnava is very disturbed at the unhappiness of the other jivas, and he is very, very compassionate. So how should we look at this episode? So in the previous speakers also spoken about this, and we had the Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, he also spoke about being compassionate. It comes in 3 stages. One is on a bodily platform, one is on an emotional platform, and one is a spiritual platform. In the bodily platform, the issues with the body, some disease or some, then if we help the person, then we are helping to keep his body and soul together. Just like on a bodily platform, somebody doesn't have food, or somebody is starving, they distribute food, or it's very cold, and like in Vrindavan, sometimes the weather gets very cold, and there are people on the street, they don't have blankets, so a philanthropic person might come and give a blanket. There is also compassion, but on a bodily platform, because it is very temporary, and it doesn't. Somebody gives food to a person, after a while he becomes hungry again. So you're giving him temporary relief, but not full relief. Then this, of course, emotional compassion, emotional stage, which is somebody having some mental issues or very emotionally upset. We can sympathize with him or her. We can have empathy for her, him, or we can take the person to a psychologist or a counselor to take care of his emotional issues. So a person, we can, that's also compassion, because we're trying to calm the person down so he or she can do devotional service properly. So that's an emotional stage. But then it's a spiritual stage. You see, if one is sympathetic at all, one should endeavor to raise people to Krishna conscious stage. This is what Srila Prabhupada saying in the purport. Prabhupada said they are philanthropists, they are altruists, and they are people who are communists. They have desire to help people to come up. But they are forgetting this bodily compassion is on the mental platform, emotional platform is temporary, is not going to help living entity to attain Prema Bhakti. So Prabhupada really emphasizing the purpose that this actual benefit is achieved only by engaging the person, uplifting that person to a spiritual stage or to Krishna consciousness, because that is permanent. Then the person, the jiva doesn't have to take another birth and can go back to the to the kingdom of God, to Krishna Dham. So that is ultimate. This is the best welfare activity. So outside people sometimes criticize ISKCON, okay, you're not doing philanthropic activity, not building hospital or opening guest houses, or but they Prabhupada said the best welfare activity for a person is to advance the jiva to the spiritual platform, because then the person has a permanent solution to all his problems. So in this purpose, Srila Prabhupada really emphasizing, he says all this philanthropic, altruism, communism, they are becoming, I mean, it's good at stage, but it's a lower level, trying to temporarily elevate the suffering. So let's look at some of the, it's not giving them compassion in the best way. So like, this is a very temporary fix, like somebody, as mentioned, somebody is hungry, I say starvation, so many people distribute food, like there's a hurricane or tsunami, but devotees distribute prasadam. But prasadam doesn't have any karma. So it's also the person who is receiving the prasadam is being helped spiritually and also emotionally and bodily, because they get the strength that they have. So that's the best stage. In this case, we can see that Bharat Maharaj is also not looking after his self-interest. In the we have this seminar by Gauranga Darshan Prabhu. He really emphasized self-compassion. Self-compassion, at least we should be aware that our progress can be hindered by so many different activities. So we should be really aware what self-compassion means. So before helping anybody else, we should be at least on a platform or in a good sadhana stage or spiritual stage to help that person. Just like there's somebody is drowning, okay, and we need to save him. But if we ourselves are not a good swimmer, then we might also drown. So first, we have to be very strong spiritually to help somebody else. So we should be, there should be a self-compassion to this at the stage to come to the stage. Also, like we see in the airplane when we fly, when there's an announcement coming up, if there's a low air pressure in the cabin, the oxygen mask will drop. What is the announcement? The announcement says you put your mask on first before you help somebody else. So that is self-compassion. If you are not ourselves to the stage, how can we help somebody else? So in this case of Bharat Maharaj, we see that he's neglecting his own self-interest at the expense of helping the deer. The deer has, there are so many options. He could give the deer, put it back in the herd where it belongs to its natural habitat, or he could take the deer to another ashram where somebody can look after it, or eventually the deer will find its own um, group to get together. And, well, and also there are so many other deer and so many other animals. Why only one particular deer? So his compassion is misplaced. He's on a worldly platform, he's neglecting his service. So having self-compassion is very important. But to have self-compassion, we should be also be at a particular stage. Once we come to that stage, then we can help somebody else. So in the purpose, Prabhupada is mentioning that all these philanthropic activity means being selfless. We somebody have a lot of money, they already donate this money for the welfare of people. We have the charities like the Red Cross. We have so many other charities. That is also good, but that's only up to the worldly platform. And Mr. Prabhupada mentioning in this purport that the happiness and distress will come on its own. We cannot really mitigate it. We can only help up to a certain stage. Otherwise, Prabhupada mentioned the purport that public do not endeavor to get unhappiness or some calamity. Do we have some process or do some tapasya to get calamity? But calamity comes on its own. Similarly, happiness also comes on its own according to our previous karma. So Prabhupada is saying we are not really going to help somebody on a material platform. This is already ordained by the Lord. We cannot really change it. We can give some aid or some inspiration to go to further their spiritual life. But to acting on a material platform is not going to help a person. So a very important point. There are so many charities out there, and their charitable act is also misplaced because, like in when there's a calamity like tsunami or devastation like flooding, a lot of people come and do charity work. Some people even give money to buy meat and things. So what's happening is this charity is being misplaced. So we are trying to help, but we do not know what is the actual health of the person. So if they don't distribute prasad, just give food or even give some non-veg stuff to hungry people, you're not helping that person. You're actually making their position worse. So we see in the Bhagavad Gita there are different ways, different ways of charity in mode of compassion, in mode of ignorance, in mode of passion, in sattvic. So to do charity and do compassion is good, but has to be for the upliftment of the jiva. Prabhupada says that if one is sympathetic at all, one should endeavor to raise people to Krishna consciousness. This is the best compassion, best charity. So in this verse, we can see Bharat Maharaj, although so advanced in his realization and his bhakti, he was on the just about final stage, bhava stage, before he come into the prema stage. But he's completely forgetting this very essential principle that one can help only up to a certain stage, and there's our self-compassion is very important. So we have many episodes in Srimad Bhagavatam about devotees being extremely compassionate, but how they reacted. Let me, we have case of Rantidev Maharaj. Rantidev Maharaj, he had fasted for like 48 days, and he was about to take his meal to break his fast. Then some Brahman comes, and he shares his food with a Brahman. Although he's very hungry, just about to eat. Then as soon as the Brahman leaves, somebody else comes, a Chandala comes. And the Chandala also needs some food. And Avantidev, Avantidev gives his food to the Chandala. Says, and then somebody else comes. And his food is finished. Then he's about to drink water and somebody else comes. And then he gives his food up. Um, so we can see in this case, he's compassionate, but uh, he's not neglecting devotional service. He's being compassionate. He's trying to elevate other people, but at the same time, he's not being attached to the compassion, and he's not neglecting his devotional service. It's a very good example. Then we have another example of Srila Prabhupada. Of course, Srila Prabhupada went to the West, and with so much compassion, he has struggled initially, and we can see so much struggle for 1 year. There was no support, hardly anybody coming. But in spite of that, because he wanted to keep um, the instruction of the spiritual master to his heart, he was struggling to establish. But he was not compromising his position. He was still doing sadhana. He was still dressed as a Vrindavan sannyasi, and not eating non-veg food or not going out breaking any regulation, strictly following and having complete faith in the spiritual master's instruction. So after a while, then everything started happening. Devotees started joining and became very, very. The movement started going very fast, as we see in the Prabhupada Lilamrita. But we can see because Prabhupada intense compassion and the instruction of his spiritual master, he maintained his self-interest. At the same time, he helped so many devotees. Extreme compassion. I think I quoted this incident previously. Srila Prabhupada was on his last stage, and this one astrologer and a pandit from Bangalore came. Actually, he flew at that time, it's very expensive, and he wanted to have personal darshan of Srila Prabhupada. And eventually, he managed to get personal darshan. So he told Srila Prabhupada in confidence, Srila Prabhupada, by establishing your murtis in your temples, and devotees and public are actually paying obeisances, touching your murti form, your feet of your murti form. And the consequence of this is you're taking all the karma. And you should not do this. It's a very, very dangerous situation. Prabhupada looked at him and said, Prabhupada said, I already know this. It's just because I have so much compassion, I do not mind taking the karma. Just imagine, he's maintaining his sadhana, but eventually his compassion is so much he wants to uplift the living entities to the stage of Prema Bhakti. There's so much intense compassion. So then we also have another episodes in the Vedic system. We know the incident of Ramanacharya. Ramanacharya is the head of the Sri Sampradaya. And he had so many instructing gurus. So one time he went to one guru and to get a special mantra. And this mantra is very, very confidential. And Ramanacharya served this particular guru, instructing guru for many, many days, and asked him, requested him to give this mantra very, very confidential. But this guru kept refusing. He said, this mantra is very, very confidential. You should not tell anybody. And because he's in a very nice service mood, and eventually that instructing guru agreed to give this mantra to Ramanacharya on the condition this mantra is very confidential. If you should not tell anybody, you just keep it to yourself, you chant to yourself. So when Ramanacharya obtained this mantra, he felt complete ecstasy, so much so, and he said, "Oh, this mantra is so nice," and he went out, and on his way back home, he climbed a terrace of a temple. He asked all the people to come. He was going to give this mantra. And he gave out this mantra in public, say, Om Namo Narayana. And people who chanted, they became all ecstatic. They achieved love of God. So when his instructing guru heard this, he was very disturbed. So then Ramanacharya went to meet him, and instructing guru asked him, you've done this big aparat. You promise you'll not tell this. to anybody, but now you broadcast it to public. Why did you do you know the consequence of this? And Ramacharya said, yes, I know the consequence, Guru Maharaj. It is that if I because by disobeying you, not following instruction, I'll take birth in a very lower form for millions of lifetime. I'll go to the hellish condition. So Guru Maharaj, the instructing Guru was quite surprised. Even in this stage, why is Ramanujan knowing all this? He wants to broadcast and disobey my instruction. Then Ramanujan, then he asked him, why you want to do this? Ramanujan says, look, just one jiva like me, insignificant, I can go to hell for many, many million lifetime, but there are many, many jivas who will be liberated, they can go back to Godhead. It's a small price to pay for me, but then so many people were liberated. Then the instructing Guru became very, very amazed at Ramanuja's liberal broad-mindedness, and he said, no, I'm your disciple, you are my Guru. So here we can see that Ramanujacharya being extremely compassionate to uplift people to the spiritual stage, but not compromising his bhakti. So, and as contrast to what we see here in Bharat Maharaj's case. So there are many, many instances like this. We have time is putting this away. We also have the case of Maharaj Nabi, Maharaj CB. Yeah.
Krishna. Munna aave hai bole.
Prabhu, can you mute the person? 1 second, mute. Okay, one more before first slide. We have Maharaj Sibi. He was also being great austerity, and the demigods wanted to test his compassion. So one time, while Maharaj Sibi was meditating, I think it was the fire god Agni became a pigeon, and the Indra became the hawk. So the pigeon took shelter of Maharaj Sibi while he was meditating, and the hawk came and wanted to devour the pigeon. Maharaj Sibi said, no, I cannot, he's taken shelter, but I cannot let this pigeon go to you. Then the hawk said, okay, then you give me equal amount of flesh from your body. And Sibi Maharaj agreed. He was giving the flesh, but the flesh was becoming, when they weighing it was becoming then the demigod, the fire god, and Indra revealed themselves to say that they were testing Sibi Maharaj's compassion. One second. Mute this. Oh, sorry, got it muted. Yeah. And so Maharaj Sibi was also very compassionate, but he did not give his devotional service. He was being compassionate at the same time making sadhana, because he was so spiritually elevated, he could pass the test. So we have this case of Srila Prabhupada, Maharaj Sibi, Rantidev, Ramanujacharya. They are maintaining their devotional service, and also they're helping living entities. Devotional service and become attached to a deer. So this instruction about is also being validated. We know whatever thing at the end of life, that thought we become. We know from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 6, Yamem Vapi Smanabhavam, Tajate Ante Kalavaram, Tam Tam Evanti Kontiya, Sada Tad Bhava Bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So this, in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada quotes this Bharat Maharaj incident very nicely. He says, this is the point, we should not note very carefully, how can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life, and so in his next life, he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer, he remembered his past activity, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thought during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thought at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. So very instructive. So this verse, this incident of Maharaj validates this verse very nicely. We should learn from this. So the aim of life is to ante Narayan Smriti. We should remember Narayan, Krishna at the end of life. But here, Bharat Maharaj is being digressed with attachment to the deer. So what we learn from this incident? Okay, one of the most important lessons is that in our devotional service, we should always have associated good devotees who can guide us, who can look after us. If they clear our doubts, and the devotee association is like a protection wall that protects our bhakti rasa bridge. So one very important point in this incident is that Bharat Maharaj did not have association of devotees, and he digressed from the devotional path. So important of devotee association. Next point we learn is that intense attachment, material attachment, to the point of neglecting our devotional practice is very dangerous. There is special attachment to material things, and is very dangerous. So we should be detach ourselves from material activities and attach ourselves to spiritual activities. Second, lesson number 3 is that misplaced compassion. One can be very compassionate, but once he doesn't know his self-interest, self-compassion can very easily go out of the path of devotional service. So this misplaced compassion on a bodily platform or a mental platform is short-lived and doesn't lead to the state of giving Krishna consciousness. So the best compassion or welfare activity is to give a jiva facility to advance in spiritual life, giving Srila Prabhupada books, or giving some prasadam, or taking the 9% of bhakti, engaging in any of these activities, spiritual activities. So ultimately, the jiva is benefit all round. Okay. Lesson number 4, philanthropy, altruism, as mentioned Srila Prabhupada, communism is short-lived. It doesn't help the jiva to advance spiritual life. It's very a very temporary patching system. It's not going to help one spiritually. Lesson number 5. Even in the stage of bhava, one level stage just before prema, jiva can still be diverted, even after from adavasada to sadhusanga, the bhajana kriya, all is going to stage. When you come to bhava stage, the next stage is prema bhakti. In this case, Bharat Maharaj was still not successful and to come to the prema stage because of the attachment to deer. In the final, of course, the final is that if one neglects this devotional self-compassion, then we have to take many births. In this case, Bharat Maharaj took 2 more births as the deer and then Chad Bharat, and before he attained Prema Bhakti last stage. So depend on our consciousness. If we neglect, there are many lifetimes to attain Prema Bhakti. So these are some of the main takeaways from this incident. I know there are so many other speakers and more verses coming up before Bharat Maharaj incident is coming up. Of course, the last lesson is that in this incident validates Bhagavad Gita's 8.6 verse. So I'll end here, and we have some more time for discussion. Thank you everyone for listening, and hopefully there are some points that may be relevant. And if you have any reflection, comments, please come forward. And thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanwar Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I just want to understand a little bit here. In the moment when a person is almost going to die,
Mhm.
so at that time the person is completely bedridden.
Yeah.
He doesn't has any um, expectation from world, or there's no any attachment to anything practically. And at that time, if the person is remembering God, and when at that time, would he still remember the God, or would the person die without remembering the God? Because at the time of death, when it is said, at the time of death, when the person remembers Krishna, he goes to Krishna's abode.
Yeah.
But at the death time, he will be fearful, isn't it, of seeing the Yamaraj coming to pick him up. Then what is the situation there, Prabhu, in terms of the uh, advancement of the person dying? Or I know it's a very difficult question, but I'm just trying to understand, because Krishna has already said, if my devotees can't remember me, I will remember them.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you very much for this nice question. You already answered. There are different types of devotees. One is practice for whole life. For them, even if they're in a chemostat stage, sometimes the devotee lose consciousness, and then, as you
Correct.
mentioned, then because of their intense devotion service, Krishna remembers them. They pick them up. So there's no loss for the devotee who's very sincerely executed devotional service. But those who are not very devoted, for them it's very, very difficult to remember Krishna at the last stage. Okay. Last Thursday, I went to see my one of my mentors who put me in Krishna consciousness a long time back. His Grace, his name was Asasadi Prabhu. He is a Prabhupada disciple from New Zealand, and he was preaching in Fiji. So he was in the last stage. Last Thursday, with a group of devotees, we went. He was in a rest home, so we did some kirtan, and he was in a very precarious position. We did some kirtan, we read Gita, and we decided some pastimes. But I'm not sure whether he's listening or because he was just breathing very heavily, towards the last stage. So because he had done so much service, then we went to his funeral the next day, last Saturday. We had his extremely sacrificed whole life for Srila Prabhupada's service. So in that sort of situation, Prabhupada remembers him, Krishna remembers him, take him back to Godhead. There's no doubt of it. So, but for a karmi, it's very difficult. And the example is given when the cat catches a mouse. The mouse in a very precarious position is going to die. He's fainting. He's just paralyzed because he's frightened. But the same cat catches its kitten, baby kitten, by the neck. The kitten feels very safe because the kitten knows this is my mother is protecting me. Similarly, for the devotees or non-devotees, it's a very dangerous situation. For the devotees, it's like the cat catching his kitten to be in a very safe position. So a very nice example. Also for devotees who are not that advanced, who maybe still not somebody in a very unconscious stage, in a comatose stage, we have seen the devotees in that stage. And it's mentioned that the last sense to go from the body is hearing. So somebody might be not hearing, might be in a stage, everything should be in comatose, but somebody chants or read the Gita, that person is able to hear. His Grace, His Holiness, Mahavishnu Swami told once that he knew one Mataji. She was like this, very just last stage, completely comatose. But he noticed that her fingers were going, and by counting on the fingers. So it appeared that she was not conscious at all, but her mind, she was chanting because the fingers were going, the counting on the fingers. So
Correct.
he said that even at the stage, apparently materially stage, the person is finished, not conscious, but internally they are internalized Krishna's bhakti. They can remember Krishna. So it's a very difficult stage. Then there was another case of Pujari in New Delhi. He had cancer, very advanced stage of cancer. But the devotees who come and sympathize with him, but he said, they were saying, how is that you have such advanced stage of cancer? You are still smiling and as if there's no pain. So what keeps you going? And he gave his secret. He said, because I've been Pujari for so many years. In my mind, I'm still doing puja, Manasi Seva. I wake up the Lord. I offer him Mangalarti. I offer him Prashadam. All the activities I used to do in the temple when I was well, I'm internalizing, I'm doing all this service in my mind. And that's keeps me very alert, right? Keeps me connected to the Lord. So it's very important when we do our service, we internalize it. Sometimes we are sick or bedridden, we have some operation, we can still internalize and offer this, do Manasi of the Lord. That keeps away from all the material difficulties a person might face with bodily activities might face. It's a very good example. Thank you, Prabhu, for asking this question. So many.
Thank you, Prabhu. I mean, I was reflecting my mother, my mother, she was all spiritual in her life. She visited all the dhams, and before her death, I went there, and 4 weeks I was there. So I was doing all this Bhagavad Gita and everything there. So she was actually improving. And later, when I came back, in 3 weeks, she passed away. And I don't know, at that time when I was there, I was saying, chant Hare Krishna, and she was doing it. But later on, I don't know what happened, and she passed away. So I'm not sure whether she was remembering Krishna or not. So obviously, as you said, the kitten story which you said, that's true, very very true. Yeah, because the dying person knows he's been spiritual all his life, so he knows that Krishna is going to take care of him.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Anybody else before we close?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanavad Pranam. Very nice points you discussed, especially compassion. How details you described about that bodily, emotional, and spiritual, and best is the spiritual emotion. And you have given so many examples. Yes, all remembering that Runtide Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's compassion, Ramanujarya's, Maharaj C.B. So nice example you have given. And our lessons, this is the main important, that association with devotee who protects our devotional service. Bless us. You are so senior and devotee, so we need your blessings to give this class so we can take and absorb your points. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Okay, if there's no one, we can close.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Very nicely explaining the compassion, because compassion, a Vaishnava is the most compassionate person, and that's why, and not only that, he knows what is the best compassion for a person. Person who thinks of who are on the material level thinks that by giving him the material needs like food and sometimes some help, money or this, that is the best help one can do. But a Vaishnava knows that the real suffering of a man, he knows the real cause, why he is suffering, why the people are on this material planet, and why he is suffering so much. Of course, because of their past activities and material karma or reactions of their activities or karma. But he knows what is the root cause of it, and he tries to correct the root cause by which all these problems will be resolved. That's why he tries to improve to bring him to the spiritual level, as Prabhupada has done. For a ordinary person, he gave him the prasadam so that he gradually attracts it to the spiritual level and gradually starts chanting. And in this way, he can improve his spiritual activities. And thereby, the more one approaches towards spiritual advancement, the less is his binding for the material things. And in this way, he progresses. So that is the real compassion of a person, to bring a person from material level to the spiritual level, and which a Vaishnava always do, or a Vaishnava always does. In this way, he is a real compassionate person as against other material people, and whether in the form of a relative, in the form of a political leader, or as Prabhupada has given the example of that. These are all extended sense gratification in one sense. But a Vaishnava does help him spiritually so that he can get rid of all these problems finally, and become free from all this free from this material world, which is dukkhalayam shashvatam. So that is the real compassion of a Vaishnava. And from the life of Bharat Maharaj, we have learned that we should do our devotional service in such a way that we never get distracted and finally don't forget to remember the Lord at the last moment of our test. And that is the way we should be very cautious and remain in association with devotees, of which you have given so many examples. So thank you very much, Prabhu, for the very nice class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for making this very important point. In Bharat Maharaj's case, he was digressing, but he tried to rationalize it, as everything depended on him. I mean, sometimes we devotee can be digressed, but then start rationalizing because he doesn't have any associates. Very dangerous situation. And one more point just I have to make: if somebody can help devotee or a person in the life stage, is very extremely good service. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj was here. She visited Auckland, and Tushta Chaitanya Prabhu is not here. His wife was in the last stage, and they requested the Maharaj went to see her and gave her a garland. And after a few days, she passed away. Then
Next day, Prabhu, next day.
Next day, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maharaj was very busy, but he told us that to Vaishnava Seva, somebody can facilitate going back to Godhead, even the last stage, is very, very important service. So he said we should not be neglectful. If Vaishnava is in the last stage, critical stage, we should always go and do some service to revive the Krishna consciousness, uplift them. So very important service. Thank you, Prabhu, for making this point. Yeah, Krishna's wife would have a glorious passing away like this. Thank you, Will. And I think we went 6 minutes over time. So thank you for your patience. We'll end here.
Rupasya kripa sindhu bhaya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrindo ki jai. His Grace Nanda Vraja Prabhu ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to Assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.